What's up?
Hey mate, how we going?
Good, good. Yourself?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well. I've got to mention something before we even start. That little thing behind your drawer with the face poking out scared the hell out of me. I thought you had a little person hiding behind there.
That's the second time today someone's been like, "What the hell is that?"
Since
That's
Joe.
Lewis.
Well, it's good. That startled me, so I'm good everyone else is picking up on it as well. But mate, thank you so much for joining me today. How's the boys feeling? It's exciting. New album is out now. The whole world can finally hear it. It's going to be a bit of a relief too to kind of get
It
that finally
is,
out there.
it's a
Yeah.
massive relief, going into it. I think we were a little nervous, third album. It's been a while since the second. The second didn't kind of go where we wanted it to. So it was like, oh God, what's going to be, this is it, which, we were aware of the weight and the importance of this third album, depending on how you look at it, it's a weightful album if you want to keep doing this and strive to do it as a career. If you just love making music, who cares what number album you're on? You just make music. We're sitting in that middle ground. We
Yeah.
would like to do this for a living, so we understand the importance of this album, but we love to make the music, so it was a fun thing to be a part of. But then we were like, oh God, please, please make sure people like it. We like it, and the people around us like it, but let's hopefully when it gets into the hands of the people, the real judges, well,
Yeah.
how are they going to feel? But so far, actually, it's been a huge relief, and because the response so far has been sort of overwhelming, and it's been awesome to see finally.
And I loved it too. I remember when I first put it on, start to finish, I was like, oh shit, this is going hard. Like you got good rhythms in there. The cleans mixed with the screams are going back and forth nicely. It's a good bop. It's one of those ones where there's a couple of songs, especially Crown in particular. I know it's the opener, but I'm like, oh God, that would be just so good live. Just the energy coming back and forth. I think that's a big thing about this album as well, is there's a lot of energy in there? Like, is this something that, as you're growing as musicians, you've figured out how? Because a lot of the time I say to people, how do you go about capturing the studio energy to the stage? Where I feel with you guys, it's more important to capture the energy we know you guys can bring live and put it on the album. Was that something that was difficult to figure out how to do, or is it something that just came with time? Because I think it really does reflect on this compared to album number two.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that because that was one of the major conscious creative choices with this third album, particularly because what's the word?
We'll get there.
We observed that during the touring of the second album was how the songs didn't necessarily translate live. And it
Mm,
is one of the things that we are known for is our live show energy. If anything, even from people who don't like our music, we get
yeah.
comments like, "Well, I don't like their music, but you should go watch them live because they have a great energy." So we sort of pride ourselves on our stage performance. And when we'd had these songs from the second album, when we started touring them, we noticed that they weren't getting this kind of response out of the
Mm,
crowd that we would hope from what we used to. So when we went into this third album, it became a very conscious focal point was to like, when we write these songs, we were always thinking about what they would be like live.
yeah.
Um, and hopefully that also made them enjoyable to listen to at home on your headphones or whatever.
Well,
And
that's
I think a great sort of testament to that was this New Zealand tour that we just finished, which we'd done before the album release. We were playing the new songs on this tour.
yep.
So people hadn't heard them before, other than the two singles. And people were responding amazingly to them live. One of the lines I'd used before we'd play them was, "You don't know the lyrics. It doesn't mean you can't go crazy in the pit." And then we start playing the song, and they'll go, you know, which is awesome to a
Yeah.
song they have never heard before. Instead of them going, "Oh, I don't know," they were like, "Oh yeah, hell yeah, monkey brain moment activate," and just go crazy. So we were feeling quite stoked that that goal of ours and the focus, it was a primary focus of this album's creative process, was like making songs that really work live because that's what we're known for. So it's been cool to see that sort of materialize.
And that's a good thing you guys have realized that so young into your careers as well, because that's normally an album kind of five thing. A lot of bands have like three albums in the bank because you've got your whole life to kind of write your first bunch of songs. And then after that, it's like, oh, what are we doing now? And it's good that you've kind of picked up on that because, being a band from Australia or New Zealand, we've got to travel a long way to go out there and tour to promote this stuff. And if you are playing the European festival circuit, you guys have to stand out for your live energy. So if people are walking past, they go, what the fuck is that over there? And come
Exactly.
over. And that's how you win people over at the end of the day. And all I ever hear about alien weaponry, especially on some of the European tours, is like, oh, whoever thought this band from New Zealand would be killing it over here? Look at all these people who can't even speak the language, like going out there and just rocking out these shows. When you first got to experience that, how was that feeling? Like, did that feed into the passion? Be like, this is what we need to do for a career.
Well, it's that funny thing because, the band actually sort of had pushback in New Zealand
Mm.
initially too because of the want to sing in Māori, and we know how this country's response to our own people and language can be at times, and so there was a apprehensiveness from not the band, but the people around the band to be
Yeah.
like, "Are you sure? Why don't you just sing in English? It'll be more commercial or whatever." And the band at the time were like, "No, we'll definitely be singing in Māori because we're not gonna." I don't know. It's not quite selling out, but
Yeah, if you want to do it, you want to do it. That's the thing.
you want to
It's
do it,
yeah,
we
exactly.
want to do it because they love to do it versus do what they think is gonna sell more tickets or whatever.
Yeah.
It just happened to be so positive that it was the inverse happened anyway, and actually these days people still kind of growl at us when we sing in English. They go, I prefer it when they sing in Māori or whatever, blah, 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 which, we're not changing anytime soon. We've always done 50-50
Mm.
languages, maybe one day we'll do some sort of concept album that is entirely in one language, but at the same time, it's not something we consciously choose. It just falls that way, because Lewis only writes in English. So on
Ah.
this album, I wrote predominantly the Maori stuff, and then Henry helped me write some of the stuff. But Lewis exclusively writes in English. So unless we tell Lewis he's not allowed any of the songs that he's written, there will always be English songs on the albums. So that's just kind of how it falls naturally. It's not something we go, how many songs do we have? Okay, we need X amount more in English or X amount more in Māori. It just tends to fall 50-50 because of the way the writing splits. But it's cool though that we can,
Yeah.
you know. And I was saying on interview this morning, like one thing I really like as well is that because of the Maori stuff being the glue that identifies us as alien weaponry, it
Mm.
gives us a lot of freedom creatively with the music behind it, And I think on this album particularly, on a track by track, there's quite a lot of you can pick a lot of influences from a lot of different subgenres, which I think is cool. It prevents an album from getting too repetitive.
Yes.
Which of course, for people who like to listen to a band because they have a specific, if you're a death metal band and we want you to be death metal, then you listen to a whole album and it's 10 songs of death metal. But because for us, what makes us us is the Maori stuff. As long as we have that, I think we have a little more creative flexibility with what the music is doing. So then we've had a lot of people pull a bunch of different subgenres out of the track by track listening, which I think is cool. And going forward, I think even gives us even more flexibility to evolve the sound because that glue is the cultural rooted element.
Exactly. And if you did stick to one kind of style, it'd be harder to break out of that shell because every band goes, but you're sold out. But if you start doing that from day one, it's like, no, you only listen to the one song. We've always
Right,
done this, you know? It's
right.
kind of like this is not something new. We're not trying to sell out. We're not trying to reach a bigger audience in English. This is just how we've always done it. Listen to the album next time before you judge. It's like people reading a post on social media and just reading the clickbait tagline and going, oh,
Right.
yeah, but it's
Well,
like that.
and it's always how we can tell who has actually listened to our music is when they go, they're singing in English now. They've sold out or they're trying to be more commercial. And I'm like, you clearly have never listened to only the popular song.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to any album from day one to today, it's always pretty much 50-50 split. So I'm like, that you've exposed yourself, not us.
And was that a bit of the reason behind writing a song like A Thousand Friends? I know it's definitely the concept of social media and how everyone's obsessed with it, but seeing all that on social media, was that the kind of fucking social media is a pain in the ass type of thing? Was that a bit of the inspiration behind that one?
Yeah, I mean, Lewis wrote A Thousand Friends lyrically, and for him, really, it's how I'm sure that plays a factor because, of course, as we know, it's like it's a part of what you have to do now if you're a musician is do the social media thing. You know, it's always like the joke that to be a musician you need to be an influencer and a content creator and blah 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 blah. And for me, like my job outside of the band is social media. You know, so I have a different relationship to it in comparison to the boys, for example, who have never really, um, particularly Lewis is not a fan of the nature of social media and what
Yeah.
it does to people, you know. And so um, being required to do it as a band member wanting to promote your music, it can be conflicting, you know, when you have strong anti-beliefs on something, you know, it's hard to not feel like a hypocrite. But sort of it's more so about, like any tool, social media can be a very powerful tool.
Mhm.
It can be abused both by the consumer and the creator, and that I think is more the ethos of what A Thousand Friends is referring to is people who abuse these systems
Yeah.
either as a consumer or as a creator, and for those particularly who find their value through these platforms.
Mm.
Like without finding their value in themselves in reality and the people around them, they find value out of those 1,000 friends. Who
Yeah. No.
are they?
Uh,
Just numbers on a screen. It's just faceless people as far as you're concerned, and to create your own value out of that is what Lewis really hates.
Yeah, and I can understand that too. And I won't delve into it too much, but I did have an ex-girlfriend once upon a time. They got upset that when she got into a relationship, she stopped getting as many likes and love hearts on her profile pictures. So there you go. There you go.
Wild, eh? Wild.
Yeah, yeah. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, what have I gotten myself into? This is going to be
Right.
interesting.
Yeah.
But getting back to the album, I'm not going to be a journalist if I don't mention it. You got Randy Blythe on the album. How did that come together? And how was that experience for you? Because Randy Blythe, when you look back at it now and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, he truly is at that legendary status as a musician. Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, the Randy thing was kind of funny actually because we obviously worked with Josh Wilbur on the album,
Hmm.
who a veteran producer for people who don't know, and particularly known for having produced the majority of Lamb of God's
Yeah.
albums. So a lot of the interviewers assumed that we got the Randy feature because we worked with Josh. But we had actually confirmed Randy probably like a year before we even knew we were working with Josh.
Oh, wow.
And the way it came about was he'd sent me a message on Instagram about a book that I had recommended on my social media to do with Māori customs. And one day I wake up and I see, Bing, hi, I'm Randy. Nice to meet you. I was like, oh, I know who you are, Randy.
Yeah.
And he was like, I bought this book you recommended. I just wanted to let you know it's really great and that I like what I do with my social media, and the content that I share about Maori culture and stuff. I was like, oh, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. But so the importance of that moment was like he'd already kind of broken the ice.
Yeah.
It wasn't me reaching out to him out of the blue. There had already been some form of contact. And so when we were in the demo process, I was sitting in my car listening to the demos and I was thinking, there's a song, and I think it needs something else.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it a guitar solo? We don't really do guitar solos. We have the one on the album, but I record those because I'm a guitar player. So it's like we try not to make a habit of it because I obviously can't play it live unless I whip out my bass, six-string guitar, four-string bass hybrid thing. Um, so it's like, maybe it's not a guitar solo. Maybe it's another vocal section. But if it's Lewis, maybe it will start to sound too repetitive. So it was going through the
Hmm.
rounds of just creative, ticking the boxes and seeing what needed to be added. And I had actually thought of other vocalists at the time, like people that we'd been on tour with. And then I was like, oh my God, what am I thinking? It should be Randy. It needs to be Randy. And I can ask him now. And particularly because Lewis, our singer and guitar player, Lamb of God is his favorite band of all time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the biggest influence on, he credits Lamb of God as being the band that has alien weaponry where it is today, lyrically, musically, whatever it might be. It was his biggest influence on shaping the alien weaponry sound growing up. So I was like, oh my God, of course it is. That's the perfect person to ask. So I was like, let me send him a message, but I didn't tell the boys. Because if he said no, then they would have been very disappointed. So I was like, nobody needs to know until there's some form of confirmation.
Yeah.
Flick him a message. Hey man, there's the song. Think you might sound great on it. If you'd be keen, we'd love to have you. And he was like, yeah, man, I'd love to do it. So I was like, sweet, we'll be in contact. And then, of course, schedules being schedules, a whole year goes by. And then we find out we're working with Josh. So we told Josh, like, oh, we've got the song we want Randy on. And Josh, assuming we were asking him to ask him, he was like, "Oh, I can't really ask Randy. I've already asked on behalf of another band this year. I don't really." And I was like, "Oh, no, no, he's already said yes like a year ago. It's already locked in." He was like, "Ah, perfect, sweet." And the only thing that changed was Josh changed the song.
Oh.
So, well, you've heard the album.
Yep.
"Hanging by a Thread" was supposed to be the original song that Randy was on.
Oh, okay.
That was the song that I had heard in the car that needed something. And Josh had said, the first song on the Omens album, the hook is hanging by a threat.
Oh, it is too, yeah.
So he was like, ooh, maybe it's a little too close to home. And he said, it's fine, of course, for you to sing that lyric, but if we have Randy also on it, it might be too on the nose. So you can either change the lyric or change the song. Lewis didn't want to change the lyric, so we changed the song and then ended up being Taniwha,
Hmm.
which actually worked out better because Randy was a big fan of like the Māori history and all that stuff. So we were in the studio then and we recorded the song and we had his section ready for him. And he was on tour while we were in the studio with co-headline Mastodon Lamb of God.
Yeah.
So he didn't come into the studio, but my girlfriend lives in LA. So I was sticking around after recording and they were playing the LA show. I went out to the show, met with Randy, talked about the song, his ideas, our ideas, whatever. We gave him full creative freedom. He wrote all his lyrics. A lot of people think we wrote them because of how sort of well informed they appear. Like
Yeah.
people think they're written by Maori people, but they were written by Randy. It's just how onto it he is. And then Josh flew to his house and recorded him in his living room. And the rest is history. Came out with this absolute monstrous verse, and one of the coolest lines we think is in any Alien Weaponry song, which is "Now you'll die beneath the shadow of the long white cloud." We think
Yeah.
is like the sickest line ever. And it's such a beast of a song, and we've been playing it live already. Obviously not with Randy, we have him coming out the samples. But it's been such a fun song to play, um, and people have been loving it too. So it was an awesome sort of, particularly for Lewis, it was one of those like pinch yourself milestones in the progression of the band. It was super cool.
No, that is cool too. And I was going to ask if you did write the lyrics because I know Randy is a very switched on guy, a very intelligent guy. But if you've ever watched old Lamb of God videos or their DVDs, whenever they go to New Zealand, he's always engulfed in the Maori culture. And, he's gone out there and he's done the haka and they've been shown and you just see him light up. He's so fascinated by it. So it's not
Yes.
surprising now that you mentioned he wrote the lyrics because, yeah, he is just a switched on individual. And I think that makes it cooler for you guys because he's not reading. I know it would have been cool for Lewis if he, sung Lewis's lyrics, but the fact that he had enough input and intelligence to be able to go, no, no, this will fit in your song. That's just
Yes.
even cooler, man.
Well, it is, and I agree because it makes it feel like a collaboration, not just like, oh yeah, I'm doing you a favor, I'll take my whatever percent royalty and put my name on your song and call it a day. It was actually
Yeah,
like, no, I want to be on this song and I want to give this song the, respect it deserves from his perspective and all that, so it really feels like a true collaboration or effort, which is more special.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Something you can look back on with pride in like 10, 20 years' time. Go,
Right.
that was cool. That was a moment in alien weaponry's history where we're like, that was awesome. And speaking of history and moving forward, the new album is out now. I know rehearsals are going on, getting ready for stuff. How's 2025 and 2026 look for you boys? I know you can't give too much away, but is there anything exciting coming up that you know is in the pipeline that you're like, oh, like it's going to be a big time for alien weaponry?
Yeah, there are some sweet tours coming up. We can't drop names and drop dates just yet until they're announced. But we definitely we have had some like some stuff confirmed on our end, so we know what to prepare and when to start rehearsing and things like that. So stay tuned on all the socials. There's gonna be some cool stuff coming out. For me, particularly some actually like a dream tour.
Oh.
That I've, if you had this is my equivalent of like had you told me when I was a 13-year-old that this would be happening, I'd be like, what, really? So pretty exciting stuff.
No, beautiful. Can't wait for it as well. But I've got to ask at the end of the day, because you've got a very unique band name, Alien Weaponry. It's one of those ones where I'm like, oh, no one pinched that throughout all the years as well, because, as time goes on, it gets harder and harder to create band names because someone's
Right.
done it. How'd you guys come up with Alien Weaponry?
Yeah, it's a funny one. We've heard a lot of theories from fans, and the one that we always liked was that like when the British arrived with gunpowder, it was an alien weaponry to Māori,
Yeah.
and we were like, oh, that's cool, that's deep. But actually, it's because when Henry and Lewis started the band, they were 10 years old and they liked District 9, the sci-fi movie. And
Yeah.
so it's literally just alien weaponry.
I thought
That's it.
that's what I thought. I thought you're going to say Halo or something like that. I
Yeah.
knew it was going to be something not as deep. I was like, because you guys were very young when you started. I was like, no, I don't think it's going to be that deep. Like, it's sure
Right.
it's going to be something like
No,
that.
it's literally like District 9 was their favorite movie and they thought the guns were cool.
I don't know. I think that makes it better at the end of the day. Like, I've asked this question to millions of bands, and they're just like, no, I mean, like Alien Ant Farm, for example, is like, we just done an ant farm with like an alien sticker on it, and that's just all it was. So I was like, oh, cool. I kind of like that
I
more
know.
than a deep, meaningful meaning. Like, it's
I know.
awesome.
Sometimes it kind of pulls the reality because people can create these ideas of what you are as an artist, and they kind of put you up in this place that's outside of the boundaries of humanity or whatever. It's like we're just people at the end of the day, and sometimes it's just that simple. It's I liked alien guns in a movie I watched.
Yeah, that's the best way of doing it. We all can't be our sleep token and just leave everyone all the time, just
Right.
wondering what the fuck is going on.
Right. I think there are bands out there that do that incredible sort of world building. Ghost is another example
Mm,
of creating this thing much bigger than ourselves for fans and audiences to grasp onto, but it requires a specific kind of focus and you have to create that kind of character around it, where we're still like, well, we're still just we like to be seen as people
yeah.
outside of the stage as well, because that creates a different kind of fan base too.
It does. It does. And speaking of outside the stage, before I let you go as well, have you ever heard like someone blasting alien weaponry in a place you just never thought you'd hear it, or we haven't quite got to that kind of level yet?
Well, actually, where was I? I was in a bar one night, and like not a heavy metal bar,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, like it was not heavy metal music being played, and then all of a sudden I'm like, is that Kai Tangata being played? Which seemed very random, of course, until I realized somebody here must know who I am and they've seen me, and so they're playing the song now. But it was a wild switch from like nightclub music to like all of a sudden I could hear da-da-down, da-down, da-down, and I was like, what the heck is going on? And then someone later told me that yeah, the manager of the bar was like a big fan, and someone had told him that he'd seen me walk in and was like, oh, the Alien Weaponry guys are here. So then they started playing the music, which was quite funny.
That's cool, man. That's cool. You get little things like that. But before I let you go, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here today as well. Sorry, skipping over my own words. I had two things I want to ask. Is there anything off the new album you haven't played live yet that you're looking forward to playing? And is there anything you want to say to the fans that have just got the album or they're about to sit down and listen to the album? Is there a message you want to deliver to them?
There are some songs that we want to play live that we haven't had the chance to yet, and we were hoping, that like when the album comes out, like people would like them, so it would become a set list staple. And we've noticed that it's Pona Turi, which I think is like the second to last song. It's the last
Mm.
full-length song on the album. Is one that we always liked, but we were never quite sure, like when we went into the tour, we're like, should we play this one yet, or should we wait and see? But so far, in the comment section, we've noticed a lot of like, oh man, that Pona Turi track stomps. So we're like, okay, I think this is gonna become a set list song. Can't wait to play this now. And for anyone who's just picking up the album, oh well, hope you enjoy it. Firstly, do listen to it in order. That's
Mm.
one thing I always like to think about an album is obviously once you've got your favorites, chuck them in the playlist. But when you listen to it, we take a lot of time. to craft the order. You know, the order is an important part of the listening experience for us, and so don't hit shuffle. If you want the full experience, listen to it in order, particularly for the end song. You know, the end
Mm.
song specifically needs to be played at the end for it to have its full effect. And thank you so much, everybody, you know, for the support. Like for those who've already listened to it, it's been you know, awesome to see the response so far. And we can't really we just can't wait to get out on the road and start hitting the world with these songs live. You know, New Zealand has already gotten that. We gave them the sneak preview to, you know, show our home,
Yeah.
our place of origin some love. But now it's time for the rest of the world to get these songs on stage.
So that's a message to all you out there watching that. Go and buy the vinyl because it's going to force you to listen to things in order. That's the beautiful thing about vinyl
Yes,
records still. That's why I still buy them because it makes you sit and listen to an album. You have to get up and flip it over as well. So you have to
that's
pay
right. Well,
attention.
you know, and in our order, we took into consideration that A side, B side thing too. So like the way that they start on each side is specifically crafted as well.
Beautiful, beautiful, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Can't wait to hear the tour announcements. I'm kind of curious now, so I'm going to keep my finger on the pulse, see what comes out. But mate, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully, we'll see you over this side of the pond sooner rather than later.
I know, it's been a long time. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for the chat, man.
Cheers, mate. Ta.
Have a good
Thank you.
one.
You too. Mate.